Let's go to the Emmys. Let's go to the Emmys. Let's go to the Emmys and get ourselves an Emmy. If you'd like to support me, please check out the Patreon. Patrons receive extended versions of every episode, and for a limited time, patrons will receive an Emmy. Asterisk. No Emmys will be provided. My name is Ashley Clements, and these are the Look Back Diaries epilogues going to the Emmys. Doot. A lot of singing so far. All right, so as promised, we're going to the Emmys. We're going into my memories of the Emmys. So if you don't know, but I think you do by now, the Lizzie Bennet Diaries is an Emmy-winning show, which is crazy. We also believe, but no one has ever confirmed definitively, but we still say the first show on YouTube to win an Emmy. But see, even that, that makes it sound like it was a show produced by YouTube because YouTube did go on to produce content for a while. And what is significant in this case about our show being on YouTube is that it was a small, independently created show with, as we know, no money. First or not, it's a big deal, but also we think first. We also won a Primetime Emmy, which is just kind of like an especially big deal because there are so many Emmys. Like the Emmy brand has been a little diluted because there are local Emmys, there are daytime Emmys, which is actually like a separate entity from the primetime Emmys. They're like related and yet not. But so there are a lot of people in the world who can say that they have an Emmy and they're not necessarily talking about a primetime Emmy, which is like the top tier Emmy. The Primetime Emmy Awards are awarded by the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and they're the ones you watch on TV. Like, they are what you think of when you think of the Emmys. They're a big deal. And that's what we won, except there are so many Primetime Emmy Awards. There are so many categories that they split them into two nights and only put kind of the sexiest stuff in the broadcast with the actors and stuff that you might actually tune in and watch. Sorry, actually, they're divided into three categories. There's the regular Primetime Emmy Awards that I was just talking about. There's also the Primetime Engineering Emmy Awards for contributions to engineering at technological aspects of television. I knew those existed. I just didn't realize they were also under this same umbrella. But the ones that we went to, which was just a week before the main event Emmys, are technically the Primetime Creative Arts Emmy Awards, and that is to award all kinds of things that contribute to great television that aren't as sexy as having famous people walk a red carpet. So it's everything from hair and makeup to casting to title theme song. The Emmy that we won is for Outstanding Creative Achievement in Interactive Media Original Interactive Program. And that was a juried award, which meant that we already knew before the ceremony that we had won, which is a really nice way to go to an awards ceremony. You're just like, when is it time for us to go accept the award that we know we won? Really takes out any of the anxiety out of it. It's a great way to do it. Now, I've previously said that Jay Bushman is the reason that the show won an Emmy Award. And that is not just because he was the transmedia producer and we won an award for transmedia, even if they didn't use that term. The interactive parts of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries were primarily the social media accounts and the Q&As, but also even the questions from the Q&As came from those social media accounts. The fact that the characters were created to kind of exist in a way that the audience could interact with outside of the broadcast show and also the show that we broadcast, posted on the internet. That's what we won the Emmy for. But I also give Jay Bushman credit because he is the one who knew about this category and knew what to present to the jury to help them understand what the show had achieved. And he really believed that we could win. And there was a video made, because I've seen it, that presented a lot of this stuff. I think they also had to like go in person and present to the jury. At any rate, like Jay spearheaded that and understood what needed to go into it. So I don't even think we would have submitted or like known how to craft the presentation if it wasn't for Jay. So like Jay gets all the credit for this show getting an Emmy, at least as far as I'm concerned. And Jay, of course, did receive an actual Emmy statue. This is me holding an Emmy statue. Only 3 people got an Emmy statue, and that is because only the people who are submitted in the category get Emmy statues. You cannot try to add someone after the fact. They found that out when Hank Green was like, wait, can I have an Emmy for this show that I helped create? And the answer is no. And that is like a good thing that the Emmys do, because think about how many producers after the fact would be like, I would like an Emmy too. I worked on that show. And the Emmys say, no, can't just run around buying yourself an Emmy. So in our case, Jay Bushman got a statue, Alexandra Edwards, who he hired, got a statue, and Bernie Sue. So that's 3 winners, which means 6 tickets to the Primetime Creative Arts Emmy Awards, which includes the Governor's Ball afterwards, which we'll get to. And I'm very grateful that the decision was made to give me one of those tickets. The group that went representing the show, I was the only actor given a ticket. So it was Bernie J. Alexandra, Margaret Dunlap, Jenny Powell, and moi. But they certainly didn't have to give me a ticket, and I do acknowledge that I'm very glad that they did. Mary Kate had a friend going who had a ticket or something like that, so she was able to attend the ceremony, and we got some cute pics together, but she didn't get to go to the Governor's Ball, which is a whole other shebang. But a few days before the Creative Arts Emmy Awards, which were on September 15th, 2013, there was a reception for nominees and winners, I assume. And the entire cast of Lizzie Bennet Diaries got to go to that. According to Getty Images, that was specifically the Interactive Media Peer Group Executive Committee's cocktail reception for the 65th Primetime Creative Arts Emmy Awards. Previously, I discovered that in this book, an appropriate book to have it, I pressed a napkin from that evening. It's embossed. It's like metallic cocktail napkin. It's like we're spending a lot of money on cocktail napkins that are meant to be thrown away. And I was like, I will preserve this. It says Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and it's an Emmy, and it's a napkin that lives in a book that I keep over here for my memories. And so most of the cast was just going to that reception. And it's really nice that that happened, right? Because like everyone deserved to be celebrated as part of this win. And it would have kind of sucked if there were just 6 people who got to go to the Emmys and nobody else got to feel like they were part of the celebration. But going to the Emmys is kind of like a big deal. And it's funny, my manager at the time, when she heard I was going to the Creative Arts Emmy, she said, let me ask around and see if anyone wants to dress you. Like, you know, how designers dress celebrities on red carpets at award shows. And I thought that sounded kind of crazy. Like, who's going to give me a dress? I did not have a lot of faith that that was going to come through. But I also, you know, needed to see if that played out. And then, you know, without like a ton of notice, heard that the answer was no, it's not going to pan out. And so then I was like, I have to go buy a dress to go to the Emmys. And nobody gives anybody in the world of Hollywood like a budget to do that. If you are not famous enough that people are wanting to dress you and, you know, give you clothes and jewelry and whatever, then you're on your own. And that, can be expensive. I bought a new dress. I paid someone to do my hair and makeup. If I were like better at some of this, maybe I could have spent less money, but I spent like $500 going to the Emmys because I was doing a thing, like it's a networking kind of thing as well. You're going to the Emmys. There is an actor representing my Emmy winning show. I want to be presenting myself as somebody who should be in your TV show. Can't entirely say that that investment really paid off. That also means that I wasn't viewing the reception that everyone was going to as something that I wanted to spend any money on. And so I just wore like a dress that I hadn't been photographed a ton in before. It was a dress I'd worn to like someone's wedding and did my own hair and makeup. And this is like the dumbest, vainest complaint. And I recognize that. I hear it. But for so many years, when you Googled me, the Getty images from that night were the first photos that came up, and they're just not great photos of me. So everyone else concentrated on looking great for that event because it was the only Emmys event that they were going to. But I was like so extending myself to have this look I thought I needed to have for the big Emmys that I just I don't look as formal as everyone else. I'm not as good at my own hair and makeup. I just look a little sloppier. Like it's a very dumb vain complaint, but it was just one of those things for so many years that I was like, if I had just looked a little better at that event. It's just when it's like the first thing that comes up when they Google you, not the pictures from the Emmys where I spent so much money trying to look nice. Those are on Getty Images too. Why can't that be the first thing that comes up when you Google somebody? I know it's a dumb complaint. I know. But I'm glad that there was that reception because everyone got to feel celebrated. We got this picture with like the entire cast of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries and the president of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And I remember her talking to us and like really treating us like the next generation, that we were like fancy. It felt fancy. It felt nice. So that's the reception. Now let's talk about the actual Emmys because they're so much weirder than you think. Like, especially the Creative Arts Emmy Awards, which, as I've mentioned, just span like a wide range of things. There's so many different people there. There's some actors there. There are really people there from like all aspects of creating television. They were downtown at what was at the time the Nokia Theater. I just Googled it and now it's the Microsoft Theater. And the Lizzie Bennet Diaries team was going to take a limo together from the DECA headquarters, which are in Santa Monica. And for those of you who don't know Los Angeles, Santa Monica is by the ocean. And downtown Los Angeles is about 15 miles east of that. And at the time, I lived about 4 miles from downtown. So it made absolutely no sense for me to drive all the way to the ocean, get in a limo with the crew, and drive all the way back. But that is what I ended up doing. There was a lot of emphasis placed on like arriving together. And ultimately, I'm glad that I did. It was just a very silly day because I started by going to a hair appointment to get like an updo. And then I went over to a makeup artist friend's house who did my makeup. And that was in the valley. And then I drove to Santa Monica with like my dress in a bag and I got dressed at DECA. And then we all piled into a limo and then drove back much closer to where I actually lived and left my car in Santa Monica, which just made for a very long day with a lot of like weird driving. But it was good that I showed up with everyone else because some of the crew members generously kind of leapt up the way that people had in the past, like Margaret Dunlap and Jay Bushman had previously at conventions. I'd talked about, the first VidCon, them kind of like acting like my handler and stuff. And again, there were people when you go down a red carpet, it's so weird, but, like, if you're an actual famous person, you have a publicist with you who will tell the photographers your name, and it's a whole thing. They, like, put your name on a little whiteboard and they walk it down the red carpet so photographers can take photos of the spelling of your name. It's, like, just a very surreal, weird thing to do, and obviously there were no, like, on-camera interviews and stuff like that. It was just posing for photos, but there were people there who were insisting that I walk the red carpet and recognizing that that was something that was important for me as an actor to do, even though, like, I was not actually there, like, to present or to win an award or nominated for an award. So I'm grateful again to the team there going like, "You walk the red carpet and, like, we will act as your publicist," good friends. And then, yeah, I remember catching up with Mary Kate and taking some more photos. And then we went inside. Now, you can just buy tickets to these events, but they are very, very, very expensive, which means if you're not nominated, it, doesn't make that much sense to go. But when you think about the fact that they show you on TV, right, that like the main event Emmys, they pan to the audience and it's like full of people. There are no empty seats. They also use seat fillers if anyone gets up and like goes to the bathroom so that it looks good on camera. But in this case, you could not have panned to the audience because it was so empty, which is just also like so bizarre because also our seat numbers were assigned and we were sat like pretty far back, but there were so many empty seats. I don't know. I don't make the rules.
I am at the Creative Arts Emmys Awards. This is the stage. These are the people. Bernie, say hi, everyone. Hi. Emmys.
We were there. I remember that I very wisely put a snack bar in my little clutch bag. And I remember sitting there before the Emmys waiting for them to start, like eating that. Because also they start pretty early in the day. They start at like 4 or 5. I think these started at 4 and were 4 hours long, something like that, because there are so many Emmy Awards to give out. I just tried to look it up, and I think there were 70 awards given out that night, but it's also hard to exactly figure out. Anyway, a lot. So many, in fact, that they made a policy. This was actually like a bit of a minor scandal, apparently, and not a policy that they repeated. But that year, because they were trying to speed things along, there was a policy that every winner had 45 seconds to give their speech, and the clock started from when their name was announced, which meant that it included your time walking up to the stage, which resulted in a lot of people only getting a few seconds to speak. It resulted in one woman having taken her heels off in preparation of her category being announced and then running to the stage shoeless to very quickly give a speech. This obviously was not a great look for the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and they decided that they would never do that again. These were televised, by the way. They're televised on like a cable channel like TBS or something. Edited. It's not presented live, but it was edited and presented on television. I don't know. But like you think it's all fancy and elegant and everyone like behaving with a certain kind of like decorum, and in fact it's like women running barefoot to be allowed to give a speech before they're cut off harshly at 45 seconds. It was weird. But as juried award winners, when it was our turn to go up, somebody came and like got us a little bit before the category. And so we were just waiting backstage and we all went backstage, the 6 of us. Mary Kate wasn't sitting with us and we didn't know where she was sitting. So just like the 6 of us went backstage. And when we got backstage, we were waiting in the wings. And there are like prop Emmys. I mean, they're real Emmys, but like when they announce an award and they hand you an Emmy, that's not like your Emmy. That's something that they give you later and engrave. They just give you an Emmy to hold. So there's like just loose Emmys sitting backstage for people to just like hold. And I remember someone coming over and telling us that only 3 people would be allowed to walk out on stage. And so we just needed to decide which 3 people that would be. Now, obviously, that would be the 3 people actually winning the award. But the decision was made to simply ignore that. And look, all we were doing was just like walking out and standing there, the rest of us. Bernie gave the speech, unsurprisingly, and the rest of us just stood there. We defied the Emmy rules just to stand there and represent the show and be Emmy winners on the Emmy stage, which was very cool. I don't really remember the rest of the ceremony. Like after that, we would have been sort of led back to our seats, but it was long. And what was most memorable was that woman running with no shoes. But then afterwards, we walked across the street to the governor's ball, which is just very fancy, very weird. I think it's sort of probably similar to what it's like to go to some of the insane celebrity weddings you sometimes see photos of, or like crazy rich people weddings. I mean, it's I think we were in the LA Convention Center, but you wouldn't have been able to tell from the inside. Like all of the walls and ceilings were draped in black fabric and just decorated to like such an extreme. Enchanted forest was the theme, something like that. And so there were human beings, human performers standing around the perimeter of the room on pedestals. I just remember being so weirded out by the people whose job it was to stand on these pedestals, not frozen and not like dancing, but just sort of like being enchanted forest creatures on pedestals all night. And of course, there are like sponsored things. So, like, there was this insane chocolate table. I don't remember. The branding didn't work because I couldn't tell you whose chocolate it was. I can tell you it was delicious, but there were like, it was just so much chocolate and like in sculptural heights, and like you could just like scoop different. There were so many chocolates. I don't have a lot of photos because it was very dark, but it was just so expensive. It was just clearly so expensive. And also, like, they serve you dinner. They serve you like a full sit down dinner. I had a filet mignon, which isn't cheap. And here's the kicker, it was really good food. I want you to think about that because think about weddings. Think about like the meal you're served at a wedding. And that's never like an amazing meal, right? It's like hard to feed that many people. It's expensive. I used to cater weddings actually during the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. That was one of my side jobs. And these were very expensive weddings. And the food was totally edible and fine. It just wasn't like a memorably delicious meal. And this was like a very good meal that they had to serve to hundreds of people. It's just indicative of the cost, the insane cost of what this is. And obviously, they were just going to like repeat it the following week for more famous people.
Okay, we're at the ball now. This is the ball with dinner portion of the evening. You can see the theme is Enchanted Forest, so this is a magical.
There were famous people there, like milling around, and like a lot of networking. But so, like people are eating and then they're walking around and schmoozing and networking and, being fancy. And then, humans are standing on pedestals, like sort of living art. And then you can just like scoop yourself some chocolate. There were also like bags that you could fill to take home. And I definitely did that because I'm not a fool. And it was just a really interesting glimpse into like the interior workings of this like multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry, which means that yes, they can't afford to pay the writers. Solidarity, WGA strike. The Lizzie Bennet Diaries was a WGA show, which means that every writer on that show is currently on strike. And then at the end of the night, the limo took us back to Santa Monica, and then I drove back across town. And it was an incredible night. The pomp, the circumstance, the celebration, it was very cool. It felt really fancy. It felt absolutely incredible for the journey of this little YouTube show to have taken us to the Emmys. Coming up, we'll get to The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet, recording that audiobook, doing promo for it, which includes the bonus episodes of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries that Daniel and I made a year later that I know people are eager to hear about. That is all coming up. And after that, we will find out the final Kickstarter bonuses because that is how long it took for us to get those answers. And merch payments and just what happened to that script I wrote, the Lizzie Bennet wedding, those are all things coming up in future epilogue episodes.